Hello everyone. So welcome back to Kiran's Biology, and today I'll be discussing with you guys a very important topic in river ecology, and the topic is river continuum concept. So I think you might have already guessed by the name that this concept, it is about a river and its continuity. So we are going to study what actually river continuum concept is, how this concept has been developed, how it helps us, or what is the significance of river continuum concept in ecology, and then we are going to see how we can apply this concept in some of our restoration services, etc. So yeah, let's begin with. So this topic was first of all developed by Bennett et al. In 1980 when he was studying some pristine temperate streams, and during his studies he observed that the streams, they are continuous entity. The rivers, they are continuous from their origin up to the point where they enters into the marine ecosystem. So he proposed that river is not a series of discontinued ecosystem, but actually it is a combination of several ecological gradients which are actually continuous in nature. Okay, and this concept, it helps us explain the gradual change in physical conditions, in energy sources, and biological communities of river from its headwater to the river mouth. So let's dive into the topic a little bit more. So now I have shown here an image where you can see only two names, right? So headwater and mouth. So in this image, at this point of uh, discussion, we are just going to see how the river, how we are calling it as a continuous ecosystem, right? So we all know that the point where the river originate, could it be glacier, could it be a spring, could it be a large lake ecosystem? So that origin, the point of origin, we call that point of origin as headwater. And slowly and steadily, under the influence of gravitational force, this water, this river, it flows and it enters into the marine ecosystem. And through, during this whole journey, there, this river ecosystem, it is connected. So we cannot treat one part of this river journey as a separate ecosystem, not connected to another section. This is very interesting regarding the rivers, which is very different from that of your lentic ecosystems. Rivers, they are continuous, and anything that's going on in its headwater zone or in its transitional zone is going to impact downstreams. So this particular concept, it was developed by Werner while experiencing the fact that anything that's happening upstream is going to affect the abiotic and biotic factors downstream. So let's discuss stream order. So stream order, basically it is just a means of classification. How we are classifying streams or rivers in a particular watershed or a catchment area based on their relationship with each other, right? So stream order, lowest order streams, these are the ones which directly originated from the source. They have their own characteristic features: higher elevation, very small in size, very narrow, high, uh, water flow. So these could be some of the features. And then as we move towards the lower elevations, lower stream orders, they will come together and join to form a higher stream order. For example, a first order stream, two first order streams, they come together in a drainage area and they then join together to form a second order stream. So that's how the stream order classification it works. And as we move towards the higher order, the river becomes larger and larger in size. So this is about the stream order. Now let's focus on this particular image. Now here you can see the river, it started from its source and slowly and steadily it enters into a transition zone, and then it enters into the ocean, right? Which is called as the mouth region. Now in this particular in this particular image, you can very clearly see that there is a gradient. And the gradient which we can see from this image only is the gradient in the slope, right? The elevation. So this gradient or this gradual change in the elevation while the river is flowing from its headwater to its mouth, it is what making these uh, this river separate. It provides them separate characteristics. Each zone has their own characteristic physical feature, chemical feature, biota, and interactions, right? So this makes the river continuum concept important to understand how the river is going to behave in a particular zone. So here, if you see source, it, at the source section of a river, it will have only first up to third order streams. Streams which are very small in size, mostly they lie towards the higher elevations. Yes, they lie towards the higher elevations, and they have a blue temperature, sandy and rocky bottom, minimum sediments. So these are some of the characters. As it's moving towards the transition zone, the flow velocity of this river, it comes down. Few streams, they come together to make it larger. Its width increases. In 4 to 6 order streams, they fall in this transition zone, and slowly and steadily as it's moving towards the plain where the altitude is very less, the stream widens. Sediments which it's bringing from the higher reaches, it's going to settle down, and ultimately it leads to change in the physical, chemical, and biological communities. So it's very interesting how these three zones, they can behave as a separate ecosystem, but they are actually very much connected ecosystem influencing each other, right? So now here the gradient which we are talking about is regarding the altitude, any height, okay? And then another gradient because of that altitude comes is the temperature, okay? So as we are moving from the higher reaches towards the plain, temperature is also going to increase slowly and steadily, which impacts the uh, presence of the biotic communities. Every area will have its own biota, but we are going to see how that biota, that community is divided into the functional feeding groups. So that's our main that's going to be our main focus. Now let's all right. Now let's see how in more detail this river continuum concept, especially with respect to the biological component. So we have in the last image, last slide, we have seen the some of the physical gradients and some of the you know the regarding the elevation, altitude. But here we are going to see actually what is inside the river, which is um, which helps in the cycling of energy and material, and we are going to see a lot many details about its productivity, how the material it's moving across the river, etc., how it's connected. So these three images very clearly they show the headwater zone, then the transitional um, zone where the medium-sized rivers they are found, and then the last one is the large river zone or the floodplain zone. Okay. Now in this, only looking at the image, these images are not of a single river. They are definitely of different rivers, but they are actually just representative images for the characters shown by that specific zone of the river. So if you'll take a look on the image showing the headwater zone of a river, clearly indicates that uh, few things about the river, that it has trees on its side, it's narrow, um, velocity we can't see, but it usually has high velocity. Then these river bed, it is comprised mostly of rocks, as you can see. So these are some of the characteristic feature of headwater streams or low order streams, right? So in this particular section of the river, the organic matter that it receives, it will mostly be coming from the falling leaves, the leaves from the um, periphery, from the shores, right, from the banks of the river. So um, these organic matter in the form of leaf litter, we call that as a porous particulate organic matter, which is the CPO. And because of this allogenic source of organic material, this uh, section, it mostly has the functional feeding groups like shredders, scrapers, collectors, and predators as well. So these have the capacity to feed on this coarse particulate organic matter, and this particular zone, it doesn't receive enough light. Because of that reason, because of the trees present around it, it also has a very low primary productivity. So organisms, they have to depend on the debris coming from the leaves, or the organic matter coming from the dead and decaying leaves. And that's why the uh, productivity and respiration ratio is less than 1, means that the system is processing the nutrients in a heterotrophic manner. So this whole zone, it is mostly heterotrophic processing, and it mostly depends upon the allogenic organic matter source. Now, let's move on to the next section of the river, which is the transition zone, where some of the second and third order stream, they will come together and form 5 to 6 order stream. Okay, and here the streams, they come together and they form medium sized river. The basic characters of the river in this zone is that it widens, the volume of the water has increased, the speed of the water has a little bit decreased, and the sediments which it's bringing from the upper reaches, it's carrying, it is carrying it with itself. Okay, now let's see about the organic matter or material part, how the material is processing in this zone. The organic matter in this particular zone, it's coming from allogenic material, right, from the vegetation that's growing on the shores, on the banks, is the allogenic post particulate organic matter. Some of the material is coming from the surface runoff, dissolved organic matter, but simultaneously it is also possessing autogenic dissolved organic matter and fine particulate organic matter. So remember, the organic matter coming from the upstream, now here within the stream, the particle size of that organic matter has reduced. It has been broken down by the grazers, shredders, scrapers, collectors, and then we have predators also in the community. So during this whole journey from the headwater to the transition, now the autogenic coarse particulate organic matter has converted either into dissolved organic matter, fine particulate organic matter, and others from other sources, from other allogenic sources, the organic matter is still coming into the ecosystem. So that is understandable. Now, in this zone, the river, it is very exposed to sunlight, which receives a quite good amount of sunlight. And here the periphytes, the algae on the rocks, they dominated the primary producers. So this particular zone, they have a very high productivity as compared to the headwater, and these are processing the nutrients in autotrophic mode. Okay, and here the ratio between the production and the respiration, it is greater than 1, means productivity is overpowering the respiratory rate, and that's how the system is processing the nutrients in an autotrophic uh, uh, means, right? Okay, and then comes the third portion. Third portion is the final portion, the river final section, where the 5, 6 order streams, they will come together and forms larger rivers. These larger rivers, they are usually flowing in the lowest reaches in the plains, right? And these again have their own characteristic features with respect to the water volume, with respect to the water velocity, with respect to their stretch. So at this particular section, the rivers, they are very large, and they are bringing a lot of sediments from the upper reaches, which, because of the slow speed of water, it's now going to settle down slowly and steadily as it enters into the marine ecosystem. While these sediments settle down in the, the a junction of marine ecosystem and mouth zone. We all know that with those sediments sometimes they form deltas, very big deltas. So all that nutrient, all that sediment coming from the upper reaches is now going to settle down before draining into the ocean. So here, what is the fate of the organic matter? The organic matter will be comprised of pathogenic dissolved organic matter and fine particulate organic matter. And here, the fine particulate organic matter, it dominates. It is present within the sediments in the water column. And this particular zone is dominated by the primary producers, most likely phytoplanktons. So here, the your consumer community is comprised of predators, um, collectors and predators mostly. So now here again, the ratio between productivity and respiration is less than 1, meaning the processing of the nutrients, it's mostly in more heterotrophic way because of the presence of larger consumers. So here the ecosystem will become again heterotrophic. So this is how, if you take a look um, in the energy processing mechanism and in the organic matter transition, we will very clearly see how the coarse particulate matter, autogenic growth, once it's allogenic, then slowly and steadily it becomes a part of the fine particulate organic matter and settles in the sediment at the last stretch of the river. So, river itself is connected throughout with the help of this material processing and energy flow. So now I think it's very clear that what this concept is about. But in case if you have any questions, maybe you can write me in the comment section. Now we are going to see what are the exceptions, right? Because it's not always true that this concept will be applicable all kinds of rivers, right? Because um, the point of time where this concept was proposed was entirely different. Now, the various exceptions to this concept is that rivers are not the ideal type of rivers, right? It's not undisturbed. So we are doing a lot of changes in the river during its course, and because of that, this continuation, this continuum, it has been broken sometimes maybe. So um, there are few examples where this particular concept will not be applicable to its maximum. And one example is like where the rivers, their flow is regulated by the construction of various dams or um, directing their water for some other purpose. So in such cases, if the flow is regulated, then definitely it's going to impact downstream, and the prediction regarding the community of downstream because of by applying this continuum concept will not be true. So in case of dams and flow regulated rivers, then again there are many cases where, like because of the sand mining or because of high urbanization, channel modification, etc., the rivers become disturbed and the continuum is also disturbed simultaneously. Now, what another example where this concept does not apply is when we see the floodplains during the time of flood pulse. There is a flood in the river and it kind of expanded to its floodplain zones. Those connectivity and disconnectivity will happen in those ecosystems. The floodplain ecosystem and the river ecosystem sometimes become connected, and sometimes they lose the connection. And this uh, this change, this dynamism, or this seasonal variation, this is also something that this continuum concept didn't explain. It's not fully applicable to larger rivers, more polluted rivers especially. So these are few examples where the continuum concept is not applicable. Then we have to, kind of look for some other concepts to explain that phenomena. Okay. Now, if we see why we want to study this concept, what is the significance? So this concept, it clearly indicates, it clearly explains us that if we know about the stretch of the river, we will be able to predict about the community, its maybe some characters regarding physical parameters or chemical parameters, etc. So this help us in identifying the river. If we know and if we have ability predict the communities in, not to a full extent but to some extent, and we can also identify if the river, if that particular section of the river is healthy or not. We can use this concept to um, produce some biomonitoring indexes or to use macrobenthic diversity for the biomonitoring. We can use the concept to predict the impact of disturbances while we are creating certain obstructions on the river flow, like dams, or if we are settling down some city around the river, urbanization, or if we are trying to dump some waste in the river. If we are doing that, we will be able to predict the impact of such disturbances downstream. So because the river is continuous, anything that's we are changing on the upstream part is going to impact. And all these things, they will help us guiding us in planning the river restoration. If you want to restore a river, we should be able to explain how it's connected. um, we cannot just plan restoration for a single stretch while changing the other stretches. So we have this concept, it becomes very relevant in such restoration and management practices. So I think with this, probably the concept is clear by now. But yeah, if there is any questions, I think my comment box is open, so you can write me. And if you want to see any other video in river ecology, then also you guys can let me know. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye bye.